Coach Shoop didn't see you for what you were, but for what you could be. I didn't really understand what this would mean for me personally until years later, drinking that Gatorade outside my high school weight room. I was leaning back against my car, sucking down a bottle when Coach walked toward me. He asked how I was doing, and I went into a long dialogue about how I was training for an upcoming meet and how my squad had really taken off over the past year. I told him about all the training research I had been looking into and what things I had applied with success and what things did not work out so well. I let him in on a few bench pressing tips I had picked up over the past year and how, if he used a few of them, he might be able to get his bench press to go up 30 or 40 pounds. We spoke training for the next 5 or 10 minutes, and then he asked me how school was going. I guess he didn't know what had happened, and I had enough respect for him to tell him the truth. I told him how I went to Tiffin for a year and then transferred to BGSU and flunked all but one of my classes and was asked to sit out a semester. He went on to ask me if I was going back in the summer or fall. I told him that I didn't plan on going back and the college was not made for people like me. About this time, he leaned back against his truck that was parked next to mine and asked me one question I will never forget. "Dave, do you want to know what I think?" What was I supposed to say? Here was a guy I had respected since the day I met him. I respected him enough to just spend 10 minutes telling him all my training secrets. He looked me in the face and said, "Dave, you are not stupid. You have never been stupid. You're just lazy and do not care." This statement drove the point home. He went on to tell me how I had just spent 10 minutes telling him every detailed training information I had collected from books and journals. I had found the information, read the information, retained the information, and then applied the information. He told me that I already had all the skills I needed. I just wasn't using them for my other courses of study. If I placed half the effort into my classes as I did my training, then I would be an A student. It all came down to the fact that I did not care enough and was too lazy to try. He told me that I might have to work twice as hard as the next guy to get the same results, but that was my reality, which nobody cares about. Nobody cares how hard it will be for you. They only care about the end result.
I saw Dave, and I just wanted to find out what he was doing, because I hadn't seen him for a while. Didn't know what happened to him. And when he told me what happened, I was shocked, because Dave's never been a quitter, ever. And in the weight room or anywhere. And when he told me that, I was lost for words until I got to thinking about what I wanted to tell him. Just advice, as a teacher, as a coach. And I felt like it was my job to step it up. So, I'm just glad he didn't punch me.
Well, what I'm thinking now is after seeing his bench still hasn't fucking gone up. So after all this time, he didn't listen to anything that I told him when I was standing in the parking lot. So he didn't hear a word that I said the whole time I was sitting there. So I guess you could call this classic deflection. But in all seriousness, that when he asked me or made the statement asking if I was, stupid or lazy, I didn't know the answer. And that was the part that was the hardest part because it kind of drove me nuts because it's, I remember getting in my car and driving home and just going through my head, asking myself, because my whole way that I was phrasing the entire situation just changed. It went from me telling myself that I wasn't good enough to graduate. I wasn't good enough to go to college because that was what I was always told. So the questions I was always posing to myself were, well, what can I do? So it was always that, where now my question changed to becoming, Am I stupid or am I lazy? I didn't know, and that pissed me off because I didn't know. I didn't necessarily go back to school because of the education. I went back to school because I had to know, was I stupid or fucking lazy? I didn't know. And then when I went back, I did apply myself, and I did find out exactly what he said. I had to work twice as hard as everybody else. This is really nothing that I didn't already know. But I always knew it from athletics. I always knew it from the weight room. And in the weight room and athletics, from that standpoint, I was probably more gifted than the average person. In the classroom, I wasn't. So that was avoidance. That was not wanting to work, doing everything. Hell, I mastered getting out of doing work, through high school. I excelled at it. I excelled at how to get through the test without actually answering the question. How to pass a class without ever taking a book. Things that I don't think kids can get away with today, but I did. I was creative enough and smart enough to figure out how to do it. But I never put one and one together to figure out, well, maybe if I just fucking went to class, and listened, it might make a difference. It might help. So I went back not really for the education, but to prove something to myself, because I had a new question I had to answer. The question wasn't, what can I do? It was more along the lines of, am I stupid or am I lazy? Because I need to know. Because whatever it was going to dictate what the rest of my life was going to be.
That conversation?
I had no idea until years later. I think I might have ran into your dad. And he had told me about Dave writing a book and all the things that he was doing. And, his dad and I had a lengthy conversation about what Dave was doing. And I was just impressed with all the things that he has accomplished. And I told his dad, I go, well, he's not dumb and he's not lazy. So he was able to accomplish. And, I look at Dave's life and I kind of compare it to mine. The way I was in school, I was horrible. I got kicked out of kindergarten. I failed the 8th grade, graduated with a 1.75. And back in the day, we didn't have any kind of classes that they would put you in. They just flunk you and not, in any way try to help you. But a lot of what Dave went through, I had already gone through. So I was speaking to Dave that day from experience, from what I had gone through. And I knew Dave wasn't dumb, and I knew he wasn't lazy. Used to work out with him. I watched him work out, and the day I heard he bench pressed 500 pounds as a senior in high school, I went, damn, I want some of that, So, his goal was to beat me on the bench, and he did, and he's still doing it.
Dave, you never told him. Why didn't you ever tell him that conversation made a difference for you? Or why did you wait so long to tell him?
I don't think I really reflected on it that hard until I wrote the book. And the reason I wrote the book was, there were multiple reasons why I wrote the book, but the main reason why I wrote the book kind of followed, Eric Serrano telling me I was going to die because my blood work was so bad. So I'm like, I need to write something for my kids so they at least know who their dad was. And so when I started to put the thoughts down, and started to think back, on the different influences and the people that have influenced me in my life, there's names that pop up. There's many names that pop up. And there's ones, like Coach Shoop that pop up that had a significant difference that had to be in the book, because at the time, what seems like and I try to stress this with coaches all the time and just people in general all the time, to him at that time, it was just a sentence. It was just advice. It was just, something that he's just giving somebody else from experiences that he was gone through that I didn't know at the time that he went through. But in that moment in time, it's just a real small, it's 2 sentences. It's not that big of a deal, but and I can never say this word, trajectory. Somebody help me out here. Trajectory. Here comes the learning disabilities I've dealt with my whole life. But it starts really small, but over a period of years, it's huge. Because those 2 sentences, actually 1 sentence, knocked it off course. Just enough at the right time to make a significant and giant difference 15, 20 years down the line. And how many times, do we all find ourselves in that same position to where what we say can impact and change the life of somebody else, but never know? And I know we all have that power. That's a power that we're all given as humans. It's called being kind, and putting somebody else, I knew this wasn't going to be easy, putting somebody else before you, and not everybody does that. or thinks about that, and he did. So he was putting me before him at that one moment, and not even realizing what that would impact, years down the line. Everybody today wants to see that impact immediately. If they're working with an athlete, they want to show them, here, do this, and then tomorrow you're going to bench 100 pounds more. They want to see the results immediately. They don't look at what that long-term result can be, that little change in direction here and what it can equate to 20 years down the line. They don't understand that when you're planting seeds, the seeds need to grow. So you plant as many as you possibly can and you try to give back. And the whole company was founded because of people like Bill and the change that it made in my life to what I could have been. And I know exactly what that was because I was on that track. I can tell you verbatim exactly what I would be doing if it wasn't for certain people saying certain things at a certain period of time. I know what it is. I have people I went to school with that are doing it. I know what it is, but it's not, because somebody took the time to put my needs ahead of theirs for 10 seconds, maybe a 20-minute conversation, and I think that it's a huge takeaway from that. So my brain gets scrambled when I think about it, because you can also impact people negatively, by what you say as well. And I'm stuck. It's like a brain fart, because now all the negative shit's going through my head too, but from that standpoint, that's up to us to reframe how you take that and the message that you tell yourself about that. But, that I had to learn at a later period of time. But it had a significant difference, and I did go on to graduate, and I did go on to, transfer out of Bowling Green and go to Toledo. It took me longer. It took me way longer. I still put powerlifting first. I'm not going to deny that. It took me twice as long because powerlifting was the first priority. My total did go up, and I did graduate with a 3.89. So I wasn't stupid. I was just fucking lazy. There's no doubt about that. And there's no doubt at all. Anybody can do whatever they want to do if they have enough love and passion for it. Are you going to run into roadblocks? Yes. Are there going to be certain things that you can't do? Most definitely. I can't learn a foreign language. I know that. I can't do that. It's not going to happen. I might be able to speak it, but I can't spell it. It's one or the other. But that's why the company was founded. That's why we have the slogan, live, learn, pass on, because that's how important it is, because it makes the biggest difference in the world. What I didn't know until a few months ago is when we spoke on the phone, the one question that I wanted to ask him all these years that I never did was what you asked. Why? Why did you take that time? You didn't have to. You could have just let me talk about training and let me go. But you did. And when I asked him why, he reiterated to me exactly what he just said. He went through the same thing, and he wanted to make sure if he knew somebody else was going down that same route, he was going to step in and try to stop and change it. So I didn't have to go through what he had to go through. And for him, it impacted, his wrestling at Bowling Green and, his ability to start, I believe is what it was. Yeah. So he didn't want to see that same thing happen. So when I talk about that living and learning and passing on, you see the common thread? You see what just happened here? Somebody influenced him, to influence, and then I'm influencing, and then there's people that I hope that I've influenced that will keep influencing as well. This is how we make the world a better place. This is how we make better people.